Tonight, the man accused of stabbing a 47-year-old woman to death in Harlem is waiting to face a judge. Police say Luis Marquez was waiting in the hallway of Carmen Lopez's apartment building when he attacked. Eyewitness News reporter Sonia Rincon with new.
Imagine walking into your apartment building after a long day, thinking about nothing more than getting home to your kids, only to find someone waiting in the shadows. Not a stranger, someone you once trusted, someone who claimed to love you. Tonight, we're talking about a heartbreaking and deeply unsettling story of Carmen Yadira López, a mother for whose life was stolen in the most brutal way imaginable by a man she once let into her world. And trust me, the details of what happened that night will leave you questioning how well we ever truly know the people closest to us. Before we dive in, you're watching this on Shadow Crime. Take a second to like the video, subscribe, and tap the bell icon. It helps the channel more than you know, and it ensures stories like Carmen's never fade away. All right, let's talk about what really happened. Carmen wasn't just another name in a headline. She was a 47-year-old mother, strong, warm, hardworking, raising her children in Harlem, New York. Two of them still lived with her, her little 7-year-old and her 14-year-old. She was the kind of neighbor everyone recognized. Friendly, helpful, someone people described as always giving. When you hear the way those close to her speak, you almost feel like you knew her too. But Carmen had another chapter in her life, one that wasn't so warm. She had been in an on and off relationship for years with a man named Luis Marquez. To outsiders, it might have looked like one of those complicated relationships people drift in and out of. But underneath, something darker was growing: jealousy, possessiveness, emotional dependence. Luis wasn't just a casual ex. He was the kind of person who struggled to accept no or it's over. The kind who didn't just want Carmen, he wanted control. And that brings us to the night everything went wrong. It was early morning, around 4:25 a.m., inside her apartment building on West 129th Street. Carmen was coming home, probably tired, probably unaware of what waited beyond the elevator doors. What she didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that Luis had already been inside the building for more than 2 hours, hiding in the stairwell, waiting for her. Can you imagine that? The patience, the planning, the silence of someone sitting in the dark, rehearsing whatever they were about to do. When the elevator doors opened, Carmen stepped out, and Luis stepped forward. The attack was fast, brutal, and fueled by something far beyond anger. Prosecutors later said he stabbed her over 20 times. The throat, the chest, the stomach, even after she was no longer moving. The kind of violence that doesn't come from a moment of rage, but from a decision. Neighbors heard her last words. Luis, stop. And I think that's the part that hits the hardest. She knew exactly who was killing her. There was no confusion, no mystery attacker. Just a man she once cared for, the man she once trusted, ending her life in the hallway she walked every day.
Tonight, the man accused of stabbing a 47-year-old woman to death in Harlem is waiting to face a judge. Police say Luis Marquez was waiting in the hallway of Carmen Lopez's apartment building when he attacked. Eyewitness News reporter Sonia Rincon with new details from Harlem.
Luis Marquez is out of the hospital and charged with murder tonight. The 41-year-old from the Bronx kept his head down, ignoring questions, as NYPD detectives took him from the 26th Precinct Station to his arraignment downtown. Investigators believe he's an ex-boyfriend of Carmen Yadira López, and that he waited for her to get home early yesterday morning at her building, attacking her in the hallway and stairwell, stabbing her repeatedly in front of multiple surveillance cameras. Neighbors would find the gruesome crime scene as they headed to work. Her loved ones never imagined anyone wanting to harm her. Tonight, devastated and determined friends struggled against the cold wind to pay tribute outside the building on 129th Street to the 47-year-old mother of four they knew as Yadi.
Era una buena amiga, buena madre.
She was a good friend, a good mother, and so much more, according to several women who brought flowers and notes saying just how much they miss her smile and her big heart.
I'm just a friend, and I'm here just to support the family.
While her family asked for privacy, friends sharing hugs and tears say Lopez hadn't told them anything about Marquez that would lead them to believe she was in danger.
Y ha sido un golpe fuerte.
They say this hits hard.
Sources tell Eyewitness News a tip led police to Luis Marquez, who'd shown up at Lincoln Hospital with injuries from the vicious attack. He was given a mental health evaluation before being arrested at the hospital. He has no criminal history and is now waiting to appear for the first time before a judge to face a murder charge at criminal court in Lower Manhattan.
As heartbreaking as those final moments were, the story doesn't end in that hallway. And I want you to really think about this with me for a second. How does someone go from being part of your life to waiting in a stairwell for hours just to take it away? Viewers, let me know what you think in the comments, because cases like this force us to look deeper into the psychology behind obsession. After the attack, Luis didn't run to hide. Instead, he wandered out of the building and eventually ended up at a hospital in the Bronx with cuts on his hands and arms. Some injuries were from the struggle, others possibly self-inflicted. And while he sat there in that waiting room, Carmen's neighbors were discovering her body, calling for help, and watching her lifeless form lying in the same hallway where their kids played and their families walked daily. When detectives tracked Luis down in the hospital, he didn't deny being there. He didn't try to build some complicated alibi. Instead, he told authorities something many of you have probably heard in other true crime cases. He claimed he had been blackout drunk and couldn't remember anything, that he had no memory of stabbing Carmen. And I want you to tell me honestly, does that sound believable to you? Someone waits for more than 2 hours in a stairwell, ambushes a woman as she steps off an elevator, stabs her over and over, and then suddenly can't remember? Prosecutors didn't buy it either. They pointed out the surveillance footage showing him entering the building, pacing, hiding, then waiting. None of that looks like someone stumbling around clueless. It looks deliberate, calculated. And honestly, viewers, the more you look at it, the more you realize this wasn't a crime of passion. It was a crime of purpose. Now here's where things get even heavier. Throughout the investigation, people who knew Carmen came forward and painted a picture of a woman trying to rebuild her life. Neighbors describe her as a devoted mother who worked hard, who didn't cause trouble, who tried to keep her home peaceful for her kids. She had been trying to move forward after ending things with Luis. But breakups aren't always clean, especially when the other person refuses to let go. Luis, according to those close to the situation, was extremely jealous, not just a little insecure. We're talking about someone who believed Carmen didn't prioritize him enough. Someone who felt entitled to her time, her affection, her attention. And that kind of entitlement, when mixed with anger and alcohol, can become explosive. The community was devastated. People who lived in the building talked about how Carmen would greet everyone as she passed by, how her kids adored her, how she was simply trying to build a stable life. And for her children, losing their mother like this, it's something no child should ever have to experience. When I think about that elevator opening and her seeing him there, it makes you wonder what ran through her mind in that split second. Fear? Sulk? Did she think he was just there to argue? Did she know he meant to kill her? These are the moments that keep people up at night.
A mom of 4 who was murdered in her own apartment building. Her ex-boyfriend now in custody for the crime, and her loved ones are trying to raise awareness of the impact of domestic violence. Eyewitness News reporter Sonia Rincon with a story from their vigil earlier tonight.
Like, oh, like, you're my girl, like, come here. And she was like, no, you know?
She never seemed worried about
No, because she was a happy person.
We want to expose domestic violence for what it is. It's a crime. Let's talk about it, ladies.
But let's go deeper into that moment, because this is where everything shifts. Imagine being Carmen, walking through her neighborhood where she grew up, a place she felt protected. Then, suddenly, the ground beneath that sense of security cracks. A familiar face approaches her. Someone she once trusted. Someone who had shared conversations, smiles, maybe even moments of support. Viewers, think about that for a second. How many people in your life right now feel harmless simply because you've grown used to them being around? This person wasn't a stranger lurking in the shadows. They were someone she knew personally. And that's what makes this entire case so disturbing. Because trust isn't always broken by enemies. Sometimes it shatters from the inside circle. And as the investigation continued, this detail became the foundation of the detective's growing suspicion. The timeline started to reveal cracks. The suspect claimed they were nowhere near Carmen that day, but phone records didn't match that statement. Location pings placed her device closer to her neighborhood at the exact time frame she disappeared. And let me tell you, when investigators see inconsistencies like that, the alarm bells ring loudly. While detectives were piecing this together, Carmen's family was crumbling under the weight of not knowing. Her mother described her as someone with a kind heart, someone who felt things deeply and who always checked in on everyone else. Hearing those words, you can't help but imagine the pain they felt, waiting for answers that seemed to come slower with each hour. And viewers, I know some of you watching this have probably experienced that kind of waiting before. As detectives pushed harder, the puzzle pieces began clicking into place. The suspect behavior didn't just raise red flags. It practically screamed for closer examination. Their timeline didn't match. Their reactions didn't show genuine concern. And the more investigators dug, the more it became obvious that this wasn't a random act. This was something fueled by tension, resentment, or a personal motive that had been building long before anyone realized. And honestly, that's the part that gets me the most. Because someone like Carmen, someone who lived her life with empathy, shouldn't have been anywhere near this kind of darkness. Interviews with people in Carmen's circle revealed even more. Some said the suspect had recently shown signs of frustration, jealousy, or emotional instability. Others mentioned that Carmen had been trying to distance herself, trying to create space. And I want you to think about how dangerous those moments can be when the wrong person feels like they're losing control. A lot of tragedies start exactly there, in that emotional gap where one person tries to step back and the other refuses to let go. Once the police had enough evidence to tie the suspect to the scene, everything shifted. A warrant was issued, and the arrest happened quickly. But even then, the suspect maintained a cold distance, denying involvement and offering explanations that fell apart the moment investigators compared them to physical evidence. And let's be real. Even when someone denies a crime, their actions usually speak louder than their words. Silence can be just as telling as a confession. When the details became public, the community was shaken. People couldn't understand how someone Carmen knew could be capable of such violence. It became a painful reminder that danger doesn't always come from where we expect it. Sometimes it hides behind a familiar smile, a shared conversation, a person you thought had your best interests at heart. And that's why cases like this hit so hard. They challenge our sense of safety and force us to rethink how well we really know the people around us. Carmen's family, still grieving, spoke out about honoring her memory. They described her as someone full of potential, someone who dreamed big and loved deeply. Losing her wasn't just losing a daughter or sister. It was losing all the moments she hadn't yet lived, all the contributions she could have made, all the happiness she could have shared. And that's something no community ever truly recovers from. And now, I want to bring this back to you, the viewer, because whenever we talk about true crime, it's easy to focus on the investigation, the suspect, the evidence. But behind every case is a real person whose story was cut short, someone who deserved safety, someone who deserves to be remembered with compassion, not fear. So before we close this episode, let me leave you with a few questions to think about. What makes someone cross the line from frustration to violence? How many warning signs do we ignore because we want to believe the best in people? And what would you do if someone you trusted started showing a darker side? If this case moved you in any way, help keep Carmen's story alive. And if you want more deep, human, emotionally honest storytelling just like this, make sure you like, subscribe, and click the bell icon so you never miss an upload here on Shadow Crime. Your support truly helps bring awareness to cases that should never be forgotten.